Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I wasn't supposed to be home that early. Fridays were usually late nights for me, thanks to end-of-week meetings and a boss who measured commitment by how long you stayed after 5. But something told me to skip the final briefing and just go home. No text to my wife, no heads up. I thought a quiet surprise might be nice. Maybe we could order in, open a bottle of wine, and have one of those rare evenings where the world slowed down just enough to let us catch our breath. I was wrong. When I walked in, the house was filled with the kind of laughter that doesn't come from watching a movie or remembering a joke. It was loud, unfiltered, intimate in a way that made my skin tighten. I stopped in the hallway, barely inside the door. The shoes at the entrance were unfamiliar, heels that weren't hers and a pair of sneakers I didn't recognize. I heard the clink of a glass, and then her voice, my wife's voice, rising above the others like a ringleader in the middle of a private show. "Ladies," she said, drawing out the word like a toast. "Let me introduce you to my personal doormat." The room erupted in laughter, sharp and casual, like they were used to hearing this kind of thing. I stood frozen, just out of sight, behind the wall leading into the living room. I should have walked in, should have said something. But I didn't. I just listened. "He does everything. I mean everything," she continued. "Pays the bills, does the grocery runs, even schedules my dentist appointments. It's like having a live-in assistant, except I don't have to pay him. And the best part," she paused, then delivered the punchline, "he thanks me for it." The second round of laughter wasn't just louder, it was more malicious. I felt something tighten inside me, not sadness exactly, but a kind of slow-blooming nausea that started behind my ribs and crawled upward. I waited, thinking maybe she was joking, maybe there'd be a twist. But the only thing that twisted was my stomach. One of her friends chimed in, giggling through her words. "God, I wish I had that. Mine can't even remember my birthday." My wife's response was immediate. "Make them feel guilty. That's the trick. You mess up once, you cry, you say you're trying your best, and boom, back to flowers and dinners like you never did anything wrong. Men love fixing things. Make yourself a puzzle." More laughter. Another glass clinked. I could picture her lounging on the couch in that silk robe she wore when she wanted to feel luxurious, legs crossed, wine glass in hand, telling stories like she was at brunch instead of on our shared couch. "You know what's really funny?" she added, voice dropping slightly. "I tested it once. Told him I wanted to take a solo trip to reconnect with myself. He offered to book the hotel for me, like a concierge with a wedding ring." I didn't hear what the others said next. The ringing in my ears drowned everything out. I pressed my back to the wall and stared at the floor, keys still clutched in my hand. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Amused. She wasn't drunk. She was broadcasting, bragging about how well she had me trained. And worse, they were eating it up. I stood there for what felt like hours, not breathing, not blinking, just existing in this surreal bubble where nothing made sense, but everything finally did. I didn't move until I was sure they were too deep in their wine and laughter to notice. Then I turned around, walked quietly back to the door, and left without a sound. Back in my car, I didn't start the engine right away. I sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to decide if I was going to be the man who barged in and demanded an apology, or the man who'd finally had enough that I didn't even swear under my breath. I just felt cold. All those years. All those moments I thought we were partners. The nights I stayed late to cover extra bills. The time I sold my motorcycle so we could afford her retreat. The weekends I did her errands so she could rest and reset. And she saw all of it not as love or commitment, but as servitude. A wallet with arms. A chauffeur with no voice. A husband who didn't need respect because he already had the privilege of being allowed to stay. I started the engine, pulled away from the curb, and drove with no destination in mind. Streetlights blurred past my window as I traced mental lines over every memory and every quiet moment I had mistaken for closeness. That night, I didn't go back home. I drove until my gas tank hit empty and ended up in a motel an hour away. I stared at the ceiling for hours, not thinking about how she could say those things, but how long she'd been thinking them. Because jokes like that don't come from nowhere. They come from belief. And if that's what she believed about me, then I needed to show her something she'd never expected. By morning, the world hadn't changed, but I had. The motel room was cold, lit by a stubborn strip of sun leaking through the curtain. I lay there staring at the water stains on the ceiling, feeling like I was waking up in someone else's life. Sleep had been more of a suggestion than a reality. My thoughts had circled endlessly, not in confusion, but in an eerie, slow-burning clarity. I didn't text her. She didn't call either. That told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't even noticed I didn't come home. Or worse, she noticed and didn't care. By noon, I was back in the city. I stopped at a diner, sipped burnt coffee, and made a list on a paper napkin. Not emotional ramblings, just bullet points. Bank, lawyer, insurance, lease. Back at the house, her car wasn't in the driveway. Perfect. I let myself in, the familiar creak of the doors sounding different now. Less like a welcome, more like a warning. The living room was exactly as I had left it, the wine glasses still out, cushions rearranged from where her friends had lounged. The echo of laughter still seemed embedded in the walls, like a bad smell that refused to fade. I went upstairs, opened the drawer with all the financial paperwork, and started sorting. Like an accountant auditing a bankrupt company. Joint accounts? I made note of the balances. Credit cards? I listed the ones in my name and hers. She'd leaned on my credit for years, telling herself it was just part of the marriage. I used to agree. Now, it sounded like charity she'd mistaken for servitude. That night, when she returned, she was humming. I watched her from the hallway as she dropped her bag on the floor and slipped out of her heels. She was texting someone, smiling. Then she saw me. "There you are," she said, like I'd simply run out for milk. "I figured you were off brooding. You really have to learn not to take jokes so seriously." I didn't respond. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. I didn't mean any of that stuff. It was girl talk. Wine talk. You're still my rock, babe." Her words were light, rehearsed. The way someone speaks when they've learned how to manipulate tone more than meaning. I nodded slightly and walked past her. She didn't ask where I'd been or why I didn't sleep beside her. She just resumed whatever text thread she was laughing at earlier. Over the next few days, I executed the plan from the napkin. First, the financial split. I opened a separate account in a new bank and routed my paycheck to it. I canceled the joint credit card, citing suspicious activity, and ordered a new one under my name only. She found out when her favorite subscription service declined. She called me, confused. "There's something wrong with the card," she said. "Did we hit the limit again?" "I closed it," I replied, matter of fact. There was a pause. "Why?" "Because I'm not your concierge." I hung up before she could respond. She tried to laugh it off when she got home. "Someone's moody," she said, ruffling my hair like I was a sulking child. I just walked away. Then I met with a lawyer. I didn't file anything yet, but I gathered all the necessary information: property laws, division of assets, how to legally remove my name from anything tied to her luxury habits. It was shocking how much she'd relied on me, not just financially, but in every logistical aspect of her life. At home, I started withdrawing from the daily rhythms. No more picking up her dry cleaning, no more arranging her appointments. I stopped playing the invisible assistant. I watched her fumble, first with irritation, then confusion. "Did you forget to confirm my massage appointment?" she asked one afternoon, holding her phone like an accusation. "No," I said, "I didn't forget. I just didn't do it." She blinked, unsure whether to be offended or concerned. "You always handle that stuff," she said. "Not anymore." She laughed nervously. "Is this about the doormat thing again? You're seriously holding a grudge?" I turned to her, slow and calm. "I'm not holding a grudge. I'm letting go." She didn't understand yet. She still thought this was a storm to wait out, that eventually I'd calm down and slide back into place. That was the most revealing part, not that she disrespected me, but that she expected me to keep functioning despite it. I watched her closely that week. The cracks began to show: missed appointments, bills she forgot to pay, errands she didn't know how to run. She started snapping more, over smaller things. She once scolded me for not buying the oat milk brand she liked, and I simply said, "Buy it yourself." It wasn't the words that hit her. It was the tone. She was starting to realize I wasn't mad. I was done. This was only the withdrawal phase. The quiet part. The part where I started to reclaim everything she thought I would always give freely. Next came the mirror. And she wasn't going to like what she saw in it. It was strange how quickly she adjusted to my silence without realizing it wasn't temporary. But I had moved into a new rhythm, one where my energy flowed in a different direction. I wasn't trying to make her see me. I was letting her feel the absence she didn't think would matter. I stopped asking if she needed anything when I went out. "No more. Want me to pick something up?" I focused on what I needed, and I didn't broadcast it. One morning, she came down to an empty kitchen, No coffee made, no breakfast waiting, no notes reminding her about appointments or deliveries. She looked around, visibly thrown off. "You didn't make coffee?" she asked, reaching for a mug like muscle memory had failed her. "Nope." She blinked. "Did we run out?" "We didn't. I just didn't make yours." It took her a second to process that. Her eyes scanned my face, trying to decode whether it was sarcasm or attitude or something else entirely. But I wasn't smirking. I was simply stating a new fact in her world, one where I was no longer a silent support system. That afternoon, she called me from the salon. "Did you confirm the pickup for the package today?" "No." "What? Why not?" "I don't handle that anymore." There was a pause. "Seriously? Since when?" "Since I stopped being your assistant." I could hear her inhale, like she was gearing up for a rebuttal. But instead, she laughed. That brittle, deflective laugh that people use when they don't know how to deal with something real. "You're still on that kick?" she said. "Come on." I was joking. Don't act like a martyr. It was impressive, honestly, how firmly she believed that what she said didn't matter if it came wrapped in wine and giggles. But I wasn't arguing anymore. Over the next few days, the imbalance she'd thrived on started to tilt. She wasn't used to handling logistics. She double-booked a lunch and forgot to pay a credit card bill. She blamed the service provider. She'd ask, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I'd answer, "You never asked." That's when I noticed something new. Her tone shifted, not hostile, but uncertain. She started watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Short glances. Hesitations. Like she was trying to gauge whether I was still orbiting her or if I'd broken free. That Friday, we had dinner with another couple friends of hers, mostly. I hadn't seen them in months. She'd handled all the planning, the invitations, the reservations. I was just along for the ride, the plus one to the person she thought she still had tethered. The evening started predictably. She dominated the conversation, telling polished anecdotes about work and travel. I smiled when appropriate, but I didn't perform. I didn't fill in the gaps or pick up the check like I usually would. Then came the moment. I knew it would come. Her friend asked, half teasing, "So what's your secret? You guys still seem so balanced." She tilted her head, gave that familiar sly grin. "Honestly, he just lets me be me. He's so chill. I always say he's the calm to my storm." I sipped my drink, watching her. That line, so rehearsed. "I used to joke that he was my doormat," she added, laughing lightly. "But really, he's just solid. Unshakable." The word lingered. Doormat. The same one I had heard a week ago when she didn't think I was listening. And now it was being repurposed, marketed as affection. Her friend chuckled. "You're lucky. Most guys aren't that patient." I set my glass down. "Well," I said, my voice calm, "some lessons just take a while to arrive." She looked at me, something flickering behind her eyes. She knew I wasn't smiling at the compliment. When we got home, she sat on the edge of the bed, taking off her earrings with a slower, more deliberate motion. "You've been different lately," she said without looking at me. "Have I?" "You're colder. Distant." I nodded. "Not colder. Clearer." She turned. "Because of what I said that night? Is that what matters to you?" I asked finally. "What caused it?" Her lips parted, but she had no words. Only a breath, shaky and light. I leaned against the doorframe, studying her. "You said it was a joke. Something people say when they feel comfortable. But that's the problem, isn't it? You were too comfortable. You thought I'd always be there to soak it up." "I didn't mean." "I know what you meant." I finally heard it. That was the first time she didn't fight back. Just a long, quiet look between us that neither of us knew how to end. I left her sitting there. Not to punish her, but because the weight of what she had to process was finally her own to carry. She was starting to sense it now. The balance she thought she controlled was slipping, and no one, not even the doormat, was there to catch her fall. Her birthday was coming up, and I knew she'd expect a spectacle. In the past, I'd planned weeks in advance, scheduling deliveries, booking restaurants, coordinating gifts that connected back to inside jokes or sentimental moments. She once told her friends that I gave husband of the year energy every time the calendar hit November. And she rewarded that devotion with a smile and a story to tell. This year, I didn't buy flowers or make a reservation. I didn't even mark the date. Because I had decided to give her something she never expected, reality, unwrapped. The morning arrived and she was humming again, same familiar tune she defaulted to when she anticipated attention. She wore that red dress she only brought out on special occasions, the one she claimed made her feel unapologetically powerful. She didn't ask if I had anything planned. Her world was built on assumptions. By afternoon, she began to circle around me like a cat testing its owner's mood. I was on the couch, laptop open, casually replying to emails. So she started, drawing out the word like a ribbon. Any hints? I didn't look up. Hints. About tonight. You always plan something. Just wondering if I should dress for indoor vibes or a surprise getaway. I let her wait. There's nothing planned, I said finally. She laughed, sharp, uncertain. Right. Sure. Very funny. I closed my laptop. I'm not joking. The pause that followed wasn't silence, it was disbelief shattering inside her chest. I watched it happen. You're seriously not doing anything? I shrugged. You said I'm your doormat, remember? What's a doormat doing planning birthdays? She blinked, as if trying to clear the memory, as if rewriting it could erase what I'd heard. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. That was taken out of context. There was no context. Just your voice. And the truth you thought I'd never hear. Her mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time in years, she looked like she was scrambling. I said it because I was frustrated. I don't even remember exactly what I said. You called me a doormat. You said I was trained. You mocked the things I did for you and sold them as weakness to people who laughed with you. You turned loyalty into a punchline. Her posture shifted, arms crossed, chin slightly lifted. The performance was back, but it didn't reach her eyes. I apologized, she said. No. You justified. That's different. The color drained from her cheeks. She looked away for a second, then back. So what? You're punishing me now? Is this how you get even? By pretending you're above it all. I stood up. This isn't punishment. This is the curtain lifting. She tilted her head. The curtain. For the show you've been running. The one where I play the dependable fool and you play the misunderstood queen who carries the burden of being adored. You're twisting things. No. I'm just seeing them clearly for the first time. There was a knock at the door, loud, purposeful. She glanced at it, confused. I didn't invite anyone, she murmured. I walked past her, opened the door, and handed her the envelope that had arrived an hour earlier by courier. She took it slowly, frowning. What is this? Your gift. She opened it and froze. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paperwork. Divorce? She whispered. I nodded. Filed this morning. The silence that followed was raw, unfiltered. The kind that settles between people when pretense dies. You're throwing this all away? Over a joke? No. I'm finally stepping out of the role you kept me in. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fall. She was too shocked to cry, too stunned to rage. For the first time, she had nothing rehearsed. You didn't even try to talk about it, she said softly. I spent years talking. You just weren't listening. Her lips trembled, the bravado bleeding out of her inch by inch. I don't want this, she whispered. You already had it, I said, stepping back. And you crushed it under your heel. She clutched the papers like they might rewrite themselves if she held them hard enough. Wait. Let's just slow down. We can fix this. You're hurt, I get it. But you're not thinking clearly. I smiled, not bitterly, but calmly. I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have. She took a step forward, reaching out as if proximity could reverse the course we were on. I didn't move. You said I'm the calm to your storm, I added. But you never asked what happens when calm becomes still. When it stops waiting. That's what this is. Her hand dropped. She looked around the room, like the walls might offer answers. Everything felt different now. Because the illusion of permanence was gone. I didn't mean to lose you, she said. You didn't lose me, I replied. You let go. You just didn't realize it until you heard the echo. I turned to leave. Behind me, the echo of her silence said more than her words ever could. 3 months had passed since that afternoon. I didn't look back when I walked out the door, and I never had to. The silence I left behind did all the talking. Some endings don't need slamming doors or shouted accusations. Some are sealed in the way a space feels different once you've stopped pretending it's a home. She tried to reach out in the beginning. At first, it was a flurry of messages, apologies rewritten 3 different ways, memories repackaged to feel softer than they had been. She sent photos of old vacations, screenshots of dinner reservations she claimed she'd almost booked, all wrapped in digital desperation. When silence didn't work, she turned to anger. I expected it. Guilt always tries on different masks. She said I was throwing away something real. She called me stubborn, emotionally manipulative. It was surreal to watch her project everything I'd quietly endured for years as if it had originated with me. The time for explanations had expired. I heard she canceled her birthday trip. She told mutual friends that she wasn't feeling herself. The truth was, the person she had been performing for no longer existed in her life. Without someone to anchor her ego, her gravity shifted. She stopped posting the polished highlights, the curated love letters to a marriage she never truly nurtured. I wasn't thriving overnight. People imagine separation brings instant freedom, like a switch flips and suddenly the air is fresher. There were days I stared at the apartment walls, wondering if I had made it all up, if maybe I had overreacted. But then I'd remember the laughter, the wine glasses, the mockery served casually to friends as entertainment. And I would remember that I left because I finally believed I deserved better than being tolerated. What surprised me most was how fast her life began to deteriorate without visible drama. There were no scandals, just quiet unraveling. Mutual friends began to distance themselves from her. No one said anything directly, but people noticed things. They noticed how often she used to joke about me, how quickly she rewrote our story to suit her narrative. She reached out again last week. This time, it wasn't angry or performative. It was short. Just 2 words. Please talk. I sat with that message for a long time. It sat in my inbox like an unopened letter from another life. We had already said everything that needed saying. And more importantly, we had already lived it. Still, I agreed to meet her. Just to close the chapter with clarity. We sat at a small cafe downtown, the kind of place we used to frequent before our lives became a play with one actor and one prop. She looked tired. I don't know who I was back then, she said, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was a lifeline. But I know I didn't see you clearly. I saw what you gave me, but not the cost. I nodded. You saw comfort, not commitment. She looked down. I thought I had everything figured out. I didn't realize how easy it was to confuse control with stability. I kept telling myself it was all harmless, she added. That I was just venting. That every wife jokes about their husband. It wasn't the jokes, I said. It was the applause you chased. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. I miss who we were. Or maybe just who I thought I was when I was with you. You miss the version of you that felt loved unconditionally, I said gently. Even when you didn't return it. She bit her lip, then said, Do you think there's a version of us that could have made it? There might have been, I said. But you stepped on it before it could grow. Tears finally broke the surface, rolling silently. She didn't hide them this time. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. We didn't hug. We just sat for another few minutes, finishing our drinks in silence. When I stood to leave, she didn't ask me to stay. She just nodded. A quiet acknowledgement that this was the ending. I walked out into the street, the air crisp and clean, and felt something settle inside me. She had once said I was her doormat, that I'd lie there quietly, taking everything, asking for nothing.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.